So my name is Daniel Teoh. I'm the founder of Native Discovery and I'm a social entrepreneur. So Native Discovery, known as Native for short, what we do is we build businesses with the orang asli that positively impact their community. We do it in a way that invites people to understand the orang asli while giving them a source of meaningful livelihood. So I started Native back in 2018. That was the first time we ever did a tour. And back then I really didn't know too much about the orang asli. They were known to me as the people that I see inside textbooks, inside news articles, and even then the information that shared about them was very polarized or had a certain narrative, right? When people talk about the orang asli, that they are rural communities, they're not very developed. So eventually I got curious and I went to one such community for a home building project. And when I was there, I discovered that the orang asli are actually so different from what people tell you they are. So over time, I really enjoyed my experiences in the kampongs. The people were very hospitable and they had so much beautiful nature to share that I eventually became friends with them and revisited and revisited. And throughout that process, right, very interestingly, I also felt like I got to discover a part of Malaysia that I would not have otherwise seen. And as a Malaysian person, it made me feel more Malaysian, strangely, although I'm Chinese Malaysian. So I grabbed one of my orang asli friends at the start, which is Faizul, and said, hey, nowadays there are these things like bespoke experiences, people want to visit you, and I think you're a great host. So do you want to try something with me? And we put something online, at the time it was on Airbnb, just as a try, right? But eventually, we were surprised that we were fully booked for our first experience. But as we went down this path, one day a mentor of mine connected me to the Singapore International Foundation and said, hey, I have a group of 50 people who want to go on an exchange program experience that is unique. And I think when we received that kind of inquiry, it kind of drove the idea that, oh, actually this could be something more. Because it isn't just travelers that have a demand to meet a new culture. There is also a commercial viability when you think about serving exchange programs, widening horizons of schools, universities, and it kind of proved to us that there's actually a market and a demand for this. So we went to SSM, found a company secretary, and we formed Native Discovery. So how we operate is essentially we are a service provider. So where we sell experiential products which involve visiting the orang asli and learning from them. So it's quite straightforward in that sense. So think of it as we sell tours, we sell overnight stays, and the way it works is that we profit share with the orang asli on an equal basis. So depending on our arrangement with the kampong, so it depends on how much responsibility each party takes. So for example, we handle marketing, we handle product development, while the orang asli handle execution, they handle maintenance of the trails. So our profit share typically reflects that. And we always make sure that the prices that we sell at are transparent and known to the orang asli. So we make sure that we also have a value proposition to the orang asli people to do business with us. Because again, that is not a charitable thing. And we are reliant on them as business partners and we treat them as such. Yeah. So within Malaysia as a whole, or even globally, I think there's an acknowledgement that there is a widening inequity gap, especially between income levels of people who are perhaps in the T20 and the B40. And if you look at the rate of inflation versus the rate of wage growth, I think it goes without saying that's a huge issue. So what we want to work with the orang asli with is because we acknowledge that they have a different way of life, which is also great and sustainable in its own way. But it's also a reality that many of them are being touched by cash economies, meaning that where you were able to build your own housing, you were able to collect your own food, but because of the rate of development, you might not have access to those same resources, and hence you have to work outside. But because you come from a cultural background where this was previously unnecessary, you might not be very equipped to do it, and the strengths that you have are not recognized in the outside market. So what Native Discovery looks to do then is to create such opportunities where they can use those skills to have higher income opportunities. Instead of working minimum wage and not having progression, you can be an entrepreneur of sorts that benefits your community together with your community. So for example, one of the targets that we measure ourselves by is income growth for a particular individual or household benchmarked against their existing income. It also involves about spreading awareness about the orang asli people, like their wants, their desires, their rights. Because even as a Malaysian citizen, you might not know about Act 134, which is for orang asli rights and their entitlements. And hence we don't acknowledge them a certain way. So every time a visitor comes to the kampong, it's an opportunity for the orang asli to tell their story. So Native as a company, we started off essentially as a venture builder for tourism businesses, where we work with the orang asli to develop tour products. But what we're seeing is that we are actually creating a methodology that is replicable across communities of a certain context, primarily the Orang Asli in Peninsular Malaysia. So what we've seen is that to set up our first community took us maybe a year to get operations stable, but the following community takes us 6 months. So it creates a sense of scalability where we're able to move to new communities. And as a community gains capacity, it also frees up our capacity to scale and work with more communities, where eventually our vision is to become the go-to organization for indigenous experiences in Malaysia. So a lot of people might say that's niche, but I really believe that the demand is still high, and it's a very unique form of tourism, which is big in Pacific countries. And Malaysia has all the right pieces to make that happen, but no one is really building that just yet. And I think that's what we are working on as an organization. And that's where the idea of technology comes in, right? Where in the future, we want to build a platform that enables people to discover these experiences and also have meaningful pre-arrival experiences as well, right? When you visit a community, you require a lot of context to have a meaningful interaction, meaningful experience, all the way to the post-interaction as well. Because when you talk about our ESG goals, it also means the understanding you have of that community, how you can be a good ally in the long run. So those are the things that we think that technology should be leveraged for. But at this moment in time, we are really just perfecting the foundation of the work that we do. So I would say Native has two places to play on the ecosystem. One is as an operator, another is as a platform, which then makes us a bit nimble in the way that we handle competition as well. So by being an operator, essentially we compete already at a baseline level with all the other operators around. If you look around here, there's probably like 5 different campsites, but we have a very unique offering relative to them. And by being an operator ourselves, we always ensure like a certain amount of foundational revenue, certain control over the way certain businesses and within the industry grow. So that's one. But the platform as well can make collaborators of our competitors, because as they build new tourism businesses, right, even sustainable tourism businesses within the indigenous space, assuming that we are the market leader, we can also distribute their experiences on their behalf. Because the idea is to have built our reputation as a truly sustainable, transparent organization that consumers trust, and hence that it's worth partnering with us to be your distributor. So we have that kind of strategy in mind. So if I were to give advice, I think I have 2 pieces. So the first is about the alignment of your commercial goals to your ESG goals. If we're using that term to talk about impact. Because for us, naturally, by every sale that we make, which is good for business, it's also good for the community. So it's not 2 separate arms, but it's a united arm, which is a bit different if we were to operate a model where we run the tours, but then we donate the money, which is different. So I truly believe that to have a sustainable, lasting impact that also involves the communities that you want to impact, it is best to align those goals and to run it in a way that it is all streamlined. If not, you will always be like at that crossroad where you think, oh, is it for impact or for profit, right? But for us, we never have to think about it. It is always aligned. So I think that's piece number 1. Piece number 2 is actually about how we acknowledge what is your core value proposition. So for us, right, we used to think that we are tour providers, and we really doubled down on the provision of tours. But actually, our core value proposition is access to Orang Asli knowledge and Orang Asli skills. And during the pandemic, that is exactly what we leveraged on to build. We had digital offerings where we sold educational programs to schools. We also knew that the Orang Asli grew these beautiful durians in their orchards, which we sold under a spin-off brand called Bijibumi Durian, which then helped us see through the pandemic. So it's to really know what your core proposition is. Because I think a lot of tour providers will think that, oh, my core proposition is that I offer tours, which is true, but there's probably a deeper layer to that, because you have access, you have skills, you have knowledge, which you can use to build out your portfolio as well.